They're very engaged. They've got their kids going to that particular school for a reason. The reason is likely because they perceive that their kid's going to get a better education. So the charter is a very excellent way to go. And the charters, the Helix and the Steel Canyon charters in this district are terrific, as is the High Tech High, Point Loma, and Chula Vista. The Liberty charter that left the district just recently has very good, they're turning away people. There's a River Valley charter that's up at part of the Lakeside district. It happens to be a middle school through high school charter. They've got some of the highest numbers in the state. I think their API index is like 920, which is unheard of. And that's because they're a charter. They have close relationships between the teachers and students, and they keep their class sizes managed. And they actually only have 3 days of instruction a week. Friday's an open day. Thank you.
Mr. Stanger?
Yeah, I'm aware that the charter schools were authorized by the legislature back in 1991, and since that time, 2 of our high schools, 2 of our 11, have chosen to accept a charter from this district. And I remember reading, I think it was in East County Magazine, that one of our former board members suggested that all the schools go to charter. I'm not sure what happened on that or why it didn't happen, but you know, there seems to be sort of an unintended consequence that I, as an outsider, can see. People are concerned about average daily attendance, and while the ADA is probably included amongst the Helix and Steel Canyon, we have an incredible number of charter schools in San Diego, all of which draw students from the Grossmont High School District geographic political boundaries. And I've got a list of some, perhaps Academy of Our Lady of Peace, Cathedral Catholic, Mater Dei Catholic, St. Augustine High School, Bishop's School, Lutheran High School, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the unintended consequence. It's taken an enrollment away, and that's probably why we have this question about whether we have 23,245 students necessary to build a new high school. There are other problems, I think, associated with it. I noticed that Helix High School, my old rival at Grossmont, is very successful in sports. And I think part of that success is the fact that as a charter, they can go out and recruit. And we as a district have to ask ourselves, is that what we really want, is a bunch of professional athletes? And she says stop, and I'll stop.
Ms. Stevens?
Well, I have to say I'm a little biased because my daughter did go to Helix Charter School, and as a parent in that school, the one thing I loved even hearing when Dr. Smith proposed it was all of your kids are going to hear is everybody goes to college here. Everybody goes to college here. So that sort of focused everybody who was at that school for a goal. If you were into career tech, you probably had to look into another school because Helix wasn't going to serve your needs. I think a charter giving a school a common goal, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it would be wonderful if all the schools were charters had that kind of structure. I'm sure the district or the board wouldn't be so happy about that, but it's good for students. In my opinion, I saw it firsthand. I think one of the things this district's going to have to worry about is seeing that there's a disconnect as kids move up from middle schools into high schools, that the programs that some of these children have been following since they were in even elementary school, like some of the immersion language programs, just stop at middle school. So their choices is to stop to, or to go to another school that offers that program that's going to be outside of our district. So that's a consideration we have to consider. And again, I can't say anything bad about charter schools, and I really don't see how they are bad for any district. Mr. Woods?
Yes, charter schools were designed to be laboratories in education. This is a way we can experiment with a smaller group of people without all the government red tape and restrictions and timelines and everything else, and come up with modules and different ways of learning, multiple intelligences, learning styles, learning strengths. It allowed creativity to come back into education. because we had taken most of public school education, put it in a box, and told everyone you have to do the exact same thing, be on the exact same page, in the same book, on the same day, and then you were tested on that. And so with all the testing that we're doing, often as teachers, we're spending more time testing students than teaching students. And so charter schools was able to break out of that, and that's why both conservatives and liberals have united. We need to have charter schools because, as was stated, charter schools are good for students. And that's what we're about. We're about students. It's their futures that we have in our hands, and that's where our passion needs to be. And what I'm concerned about, though, is I keep hearing that, okay, what we need to do is take these students out of the charter schools and put them in a new school, because we need to develop a new school. And if we build a new school, what is that going to do to our charter schools? We should not be pitting one part of the district against another and saying, we're going to steal kids from our charter school, from especially Steele Canyon, and we're going to move them to Alpine. That's going to devastate Steele Canyon, and I can't support that.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
So charter schools put in a variety into a school district. It provides a new type of education that some students might, they prefer charter school style of teaching opposed to public school style of teaching. There's different, I know Mr. Weaver mentioned the different type of school week. I know a lot of students would, thrive in that kind of conditions of less school days, probably more attention to the students would be great. I was in academic league, which is, to sum it up really quickly, it's sort of like a team Jeopardy, and we would compete between schools. And I know that through that I got to visit a lot of the schools in the district. We would compete, and we went to Helix, and the other one I forgot what you said, but they did really well, and they were really well. They had, they were organized. You could tell that they studied a lot. They had plenty of students on their teams to participate, a lot of backups. So they were involved, and I know Mr. Sterringer mentioned the sports team, the same for academic league. They're just really dedicated to extracurricular activities, and that really showed in academic league that they were very academically focused, that they were, they were determined, they studied a lot, and that just reflects the school, and I think that all 4 charter schools. So that's about it.
Thank you. Start the next question with Mr. Weaver. Do you think it appropriate that bond money was spent to provide daycare facilities for teen parents at Grossmont, and did this send the right message to other students?
I personally wasn't aware that bond money was used to provide daycare for students, but that's something that I'm not familiar with. But speaking of bond money, there are a lot of things that bond money can be applied to. My understanding is that it's supposed to be used not for teachers' salaries, not for benefits, but only for improvements, modernizations to the buildings. And in terms of that and how bond money is spent, I think we need to relook at our bonds and look at the budget for our bonds and look at how we're spending that money and how it might pay itself back into the district in terms of increased students. Mr. Woods brought up the case of, I think he used the term stealing students from Steele Canyon. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. Those students that go to Steele Canyon from Alpine, there's 338 of them. They get up and get on a bus at 5:30 in the morning. They get to school for a 7:30 class. It affects their after school. It affects their before school sleep. It affects their study time. It affects their engagement in school while they're at school. It affects how well they perform. It affects the safety in their commute. If they get old enough and they start driving, one of our parents in Alpine, his name is Chuck Taylor, had a grandson that died in a traffic accident on the way to Steele Canyon High School early one morning. In fact, I think the board actually passed a resolution about drinking and driving, although my understanding is that wasn't the case in his instance, but it was in cooperation with Chuck Taylor, who was getting an initiative going to Sacramento for a policy that concerns that.
Thank you. Mr. Sterringer?
Yeah, like Bill, I wasn't actually aware that bond money was used for daycare. I assume that's for the children of students at the school. And having said that, it doesn't appear to be a real appropriate use of bond money. But having said that, and not trying to be too critical of my future colleagues on this board, I think that they've avoided some of the pitfalls that other districts have. For example, San Diego Unified and the Sweetwater High School Board have used their bond money to buy computers. Well, you know, everybody's a techie these days and say, hey, that's really great. But you look at what's the life expectancy of a computer, you know, and depending on the way it's used and depending upon technical progress, it may be 5 years. So you're borrowing money over a 30-year period for an item that'll wear out in 5 years. It's similar to what I did when we bought our first house. They asked if we wanted to fold in the price of the carpet in the mortgage. And I said, sure, why not? But the carpet wore out in 10 years or less. I might have still been paying for it, I'm not sure. So let me just say that I think our district is not making the errors of other districts, and I applaud the board members of our district.
Ms. Stevens?
Well, I found out about the daycare situation in a little backhanded way. I was approached by some ladies whose sewing program had been discontinued at West Hills High School. And the instructor is now providing daycare for the students of, the children of some students. And it brought to my attention the entire that child development center, which is a pretty good sized facility. I'm not sure that's an appropriate use of money or our teaching resources. Extended from that, I'm not sure that the bond money that's being used to renovate the district building is an appropriate use of money. I think those things should be looked at and not done if that's not the appropriate use for those things.
Mr. Woods?
Yes, both Prop 8, H and Prop U, that bond money is supposed to be going exclusively to construction and to renovation. So I'm not aware of any of it going to teachers or childcare. We are obligated, though, to make sure that all students receive an education. And so that is, I think, the purpose behind that, but that's coming out of operating funds, not out of the bond. Now, the problem that we're faced with that our ADA, which is our average daily attendance, the amount of money that we get from Sacramento each year per student, has decreased in the last 4 years from, I think, about 18,000 to 14,000. So I can get too many zeros in there. But what we've lost is $400 per student per year. And when you times that with 22,000 students, that's a large amount of money. And that's a decrease of operating funds that we're experiencing in our 11 campuses. And as a result, again, when teachers retire, we don't replace them. We instead push students into these small classrooms. And that's something that we need to find a way to stop. We need to be able to rehire teachers to replace and hire teachers to replace those that are retiring. Because with this type of class size, it hurts both students and it hurts teachers. Because how can you deal with the bright students and the at-risk students and the average students in the same classroom when you're dealing with 40 students? It's impossible. And so we've been put in a very bad situation now. Through the use of technology and other things we've done, we've been able to increase math scores, but we won't be able to continue that. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
I might be wrong, but I think that Grossmont had built one of these daycare facilities. And I know when I first heard about it, I thought, is that really what we want to be, helping and putting in our schools? But then I thought about it, and it goes back to what I said about how a community needs to support their students. And I know it must be tough being a teen mom or a teen dad, or just having a kid when you're still in high school. It's tough. I know I had a friend, I'm not going to mention her name, but she got pregnant, I think it was her junior year, and she had a tough time. I'm sure the support from parents, it's it's a hard thing to go through, and I think that having a school build a daycare facility would be a great support in saying that we know that this is hard, we're going to help you keep in school, stay in school, keep your education, take some of the hardship off your hands so that you can still study, you can still go to classes, you're not bothered by, you know, is your kid going to be okay at home? I know your parents are at work or anything like that. You know, you don't have to worry about that. You can focus on your education. And like I said, it just takes a community, and a daycare at a school would be appropriate. I know that Ms. Stevens said something about, you know, it may not be part of the fund, or, you know, it might not fall under the category of things that these funds should go to. I agree that we should look at if, you know, this is something that the money could have been spent on, if this was wrong to spend it on this. I know there's two sides of this, whether it's a moral decision to support this kind of thing, and also there's just the financial side of it. Is this kind of program or this kind of facility something that the fund should have gone to, whether it's right or wrong? Is it something that's in the rules, and whether or not we should have spent the money on it?
Thank you, Ms. Schreiber.
Oh, hang on, give me a second.
Equipment
What do you call that, malfunction? Wardrobe no, it's not wardrobe.
We can use bond money for that, I think.
Is this your house? Did you build this house? Come on, Jim. Ah,
Well, it
Okay,
depends
well,
on who
this-
asks.
taking the phone off. Okay, can I just start now?
I didn't start.
Well, okay, great, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to go back. Jim Sterringer had a question about the district-wide charter. Actually, that was proposed on the step of our district by a former colleague and a current colleague on the same morning, coincidentally, that Still Canyon was going out for their authorization to become a charter. So you can take from that what you may. On the Child Development Center, the Grossmont High School, I think Monte Vista and El Cajon Valley, we have 3 campuses, and I may have those wrong, have had child development centers with child care for our pregnant teens and the mother and father, to keep them in school, and we've had some successful parents continue their education. I struggled with this when I first became a board member, but I talked to many of our if you will, College Pregnancy Care Center and different organizations like that, and they said it's way better than the alternative, and we should help those students get a leg up still. That's our job. The bond money was only spent for the building. What's interesting, everything got thrown into career tech. I have had many issues with how everything got defined as career tech. And it only serves, it's a pretty good sized building, it only serves 60, is that, it only serves, 60 students, and we did get some funding, grant funding from First Five, but I think that was cut in one of the last initiatives, so I've asked staff to bring back to me, how are we funding the operating costs of that building? So, but the operating costs are not through the bond.
Thank you. We'll start the next question with Mr. Sterringer. Would you be in favor of renegotiating the superintendent's contract in order to balance the budget?
Well, the question presupposes, number one, that the superintendent is overpaid, and it assumes that I know what's in the superintendent's contract, and I have to plead ignorance. I think there's a couple of people on the panel here that probably negotiated that contract. I doubt seriously that renegotiating his contract would cure any financial problems that the district has. However, having said that, one of the things that I would do as a new board member is provide fresh eyes, not only at salaries, but at other things involving the district. I know a lot of the board members, and I think I get along extremely well with them, and I believe that I would be a good addition. But as far as the superintendent is concerned, I had nothing to do with his hiring. I'll have nothing to do, I'm sure, with his negotiation on his current salary.
I think he gets paid a lot more than I thought he did. If we can balance the budget by even dealing with his salary at all, I don't think that's gonna solve the problem. I think there is a problem in negotiating salaries, but I don't think it's necessarily that one person's salary. I think we should be looking for the best possible negotiators, professional negotiators, to work with the staff as well as the employee unions. I think we could do a lot better job in those areas. Thank you, Mr. Burns.
I want to say that at Grossmont, we do have a very committed team to making sure our students get the very best education possible. We do have a supportive superintendent, we have very professional staff and cabinet, we have thousands of motivated teachers, we have a citizens bond oversight committee that is very much involved in watching what is taking place and watching every dollar. We have dedicated high school principals. And we need this type of team where we work together with our partners, rather than trying to, again, split the district and have one group of persons fighting another group of persons, being jealous of other people and who's making who and or what amount of money, and trying to figure out, well, you know, can we cut from here or there? You know, we are in very difficult times. We're in the worst recession since the Great Depression. And those are difficult times where we have to learn how to pull together rather than fighting against each other. And I think our superintendent realizes that, and I'm hoping he will make some concessions that would also be setting a leadership for the rest of the district, because everyone in the district is taking cuts in pay, including our superintendent.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
I would be all for cutting the superintendent's pay. I actually didn't know that the board members got paid, so I looked that up. It's not, I'm sure it's not a huge amount, but it's something. It's not going to solve all the problems, like Ms. Stevens said. There's other places that we can look, but superintendents, board members, elected officials, they could give up some of the money. I'm sure that these aren't full-time jobs compared to a teacher whose career it is to teach. And it's the idea with furlough days. We're not giving furlough days to the superintendent as far as I'm concerned. I think that we need to find places where we're not cutting from teachers or schools, but from other places. Superintendent salary is one place. I know it's not going to get a lot, but it's something, it will add up. So that's one place.
Ms. Schreiber?
Thank you. The bureaucracy is always a place that we can look at. As a sitting board member, I don't think I'm at liberty to really discuss the superintendent's contract or his salary, but we've had superintendents in the past where if everybody was getting a cut, our superintendent got a cut as well. Right now, our superintendent came in with a salary he was given, and I think it was one of the at the lower end of what most superintendents are making. This is like really embarrassing. Obviously the bureaucracy is a consideration. I think we could probably do better in these times because I believe that we need to be directing money into the classroom. I wanted to get back real quick to, if I have a minute, on the Child Development Center. That was over budget, like by $2 million. That program started out in like a bungalow, and this board was never brought budgets on the Child Development Center. The last long-range master facility plan that the board approved was in 2008, prior to going out for a bond in 2008. And they have never approved a long-range master facility plan since then. All they've seen is a glossy binder of beautiful performing arts centers and CTEs. And we voted on that, and they never brought us a budget attached to any of it. So I've had some long-time concerns about how we're tagging everything as career tech when the state of California promises $20 million and we only got $4 million, and we were spending money out of our other funding for all these career tech buildings.
Mr. Weaver?
I don't believe that you're going to solve the budget problem by cutting the superintendent's salary either, but I do think that perhaps, and I'm not saying it's coming from the superintendent's office, but there's a leadership problem in the Grossmont Union High School District. There's a leadership problem from a board standpoint, and there's a leadership problem from the administration standpoint. And part of that leadership problem does go back to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. I attended a lot of those meetings when it first started up in 2005. And initially, that Citizen Bond Oversight Committee was a Citizens Bond Non-Oversight Committee. There was several years where very little oversight happened. Now things are turning around, and the Oversight Committee is apparently picking up and really starting to look at things. The last few meetings I've attended haven't been as numerous as in years past, but I see leadership in the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee that's really starting to look at things and inspect things and see what's going on with spending of the bond money. When I talk leadership, we need to bring new students into the Grossmont High School District. And you know, one way to do that is to do what charter schools are doing, and that's public relations, media, talking about the great programs that they have, the new programs that are coming in. One way would be, you know, the ignored 12th high school that was budgeted at $73 million back in 2003, which was part of the original Prop H bond, the 2003 Long Range Facilities Master Plan. Budgeted it at $73 million. It was 25% of the Prop H bond. And then we moved on to the Prop U bond. And somehow that high school has just gotten lost. And this board, the majority, is going to blow it off and not build it.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Okay, we're going to start the next question with Ms. Stevens. Could you tell us who your 3 largest contributors are, and what is your campaign budget?
This is going to be a real short answer. I have no contributors. I'm just myself. What was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Your campaign budget amount.
Let's see. I think I bought some signs. I think I spent $60, but that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Woods.
That's a good question. I need to look at that. I haven't looked at it, Pat, and so I can't tell you. I do know my budget is, I've collected $86,000.
Mr. Miller?
I would say my largest contributor, a few people have given me $100. So that's the largest contribution. I've been going to clubs, just spreading the message that I'm running, and I've gotten a lot of support as a youth, someone who's going out of the way to run for a public office. I've gotten a lot of support, and I really appreciate all that. We were able to get signs, I think it was a few $100s. That's about pretty much all that we've gotten, probably a little less than that we've had to pay out of our own pockets. The candidate statement, that was a lot of money. We had to raise some funds for that. But we didn't get too much, just a few $100s from various contributors, nothing over 100. That's about it.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiber.
Yes, and thank you, Dwayne, for your technical assistance. I appreciate that. My budget is probably about $8,182 and my largest contributor was the San Diego Lincoln Club.
Mr. Weaver?
I have a couple $1,000s that have been contributed to me. The largest single one was just under $1,000, and I felt extremely guilty in accepting those when I know our schools are needing help. I wasn't certain how to best use those funds, and it's a very difficult thing to go out and ask for contributions to run for an office position such as this. But people do have to step up, and they have to get a place at the table and be vocal and talk about their issues and their direction and give input to administration and board members about what they think is important. And that's a tough issue, an interesting question.
Mr. Starringer?
Sounds like Dr. Woods wants to.
I did receive from the Lincoln Club as well. I just didn't look, and so when people tell me that's what I know, I really didn't want to know who contributed.
Okay.
Let me just say that these campaign contributions are a public record. each of us must submit a report to the registrar of voters this next Friday. It's what they call the second pre-election report.
It's actually Thursday.
25th. Isn't it? What day is the 25th?
Thursday.
Thursday. Well, maybe I better hurry.
It's hard.
And since we're correcting the record too, it was implied that the board keeps secret or confidential the salary of the superintendent. That's also a public record, and I really wish that somebody would say what that salary is. Whatever it is, I don't really much care, but nobody should leave this room thinking that any of these public salaries, including that of the teachers themselves, are confidential. They're not. They're public records. You have every right to ask for them. You can ask for them by name. So now, answering the question before I run out of time, I have not sought any campaign contributions, and needless to say, I haven't received any either. And the money that has been spent has been my own money, and I believe, and it's my guess, because it's not due until Thursday, right? Around $9,000. That's my best guess.
Okay. We're going to start this question with Mr. Wood. What is the district best at now, and where is its greatest weakness?
Say that first part again.
What is the district best at now?
One of the things that we're very good at is our graduation rates. We are doing everything possible to recover students who may have dropped out and getting them back into the system, because we know that getting students to graduate from high school is life-changing. If you don't graduate from high school, what type of job are you going to get? And then there's too many ways of getting in trouble with the law and destroying your life before it ever starts. So the idea that we can keep students engaged in the learning process, keep them in school, get them to graduate, working with our at-risk students. We have counselors that monitor them, keep them going. The career tech has really made a significant difference. The number of students involved in that grows every single year because, again, sometimes many of us work best with our hands. You don't see my hands when I'm down here, but I'm moving my hands the whole time. I mean, we work with our hands, we talk with our hands, and we need to offer an education for them. And also, we need to, for those that want to be involved in medicine, those that want to be involved with animals and agriculture, it's interesting. We just built a new agricultural facility at El Capitan, and to see all those parents that were there supporting their kids that were there, and they were excited and proud, talking about all the animals they had taken care of. When we engage students that way, we're learning is real life. When it involves the technologies that they already know about, their cell phones, their iPads, iPhones. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
I would say it's kind of hard to choose one thing that they're best at or one thing that they're the weakest at. I would say that they seem to want to see the district better. I can appreciate that. I might disagree with how they fund certain things. They might not have the best sight as to where the funds should go, but that's a different topic. I would say one of the weaknesses, not the weakest thing about them, but one of the weaknesses is just student representation. That's one of the reasons that I'm running, is because right now there's just a student representative that sits over on the side. If you've ever been to a meeting, she will report when they ask her to, but she doesn't really respond to the issues of the school that she's coming from. She should have a vote, and that's why I'm running, to be a student representative with a vote and power in the board, and able to state my opinion on every issue and vote on it, just to have student representation on a higher level. The level right now, I think, is one of the weaknesses, and like I said, that's why I'm running. But that's about it. There's various weaknesses, various good things about the district, about the board. Nothing that I can bring to mind right now that's worth mentioning, but I would say, yeah, one of the weaknesses is just student representation and teacher representation too. There's teachers on the board, but we don't have a teacher that's at one of the schools right now, going on with the process right now with cuts. You know, not many teachers go to talk. I know that one of the board, I'll stop there.
Thank you. And just to clarify some things, first of all, I wanted to make very clear that I didn't want to talk about negotiating specifics on the superintendent's contract since I am a sitting board member. Not that his contract isn't public information, so.
How much does he make?
I think it's $105,000 and then with some of the perks, obviously, so. That was his starting base salary. Just to let Zach know, I just really appreciate him, and since he has been a candidate in this race, if you were there at our last board meeting, I asked our student rep if she could bring back some concerns or some issues at the sites, because we do just get in a situation where they're reporting out, you know, what they're doing for the homecoming and their pep rallies and bringing the schools together, which are great things. They do a lot of outreaches for disaster relief and things like that, great things. But Zach makes a good point. They're there to bring us the issues and concerns from the district as well. What was the question? Oh, the strength. Okay, the strength. I really believe that our strength in the Grossmont district is, our teacher collaborations, our community collaborations. We have great partnerships with the Grossmont Cuyamaca College to articulate our CTE programs with what they're doing. So we're hopefully not doing a lot of duplicating, but giving them an initial start at our site, and then they can go into more advanced programs and facilities, if you will. With our business community, we have donations that are at the end of every one of our agenda board meeting, or the agenda at the end of the board meeting packet is we recognize our business and community donations. And what about the weak one? The weak spot? Can I say the weak spot real quick?
Sure, go right ahead, real quick.
Well, our weak spot is having my master's in governance is I don't think we're an effective governance team. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Weaver.
Strengths and weaknesses. I think that the communication and transparency is probably the weakest link. And I'll use, as an example, I'll use the bond, Prop H, Prop U. The fact that we had 2 bonds that have promised, and in the opening summary language stated there'd be a 12th high school. That was in Prop H. And then in Prop U it stated that there would be a high school to serve Alpine and Blossom Valley. And that was in the opening paragraph in 2 bond statements. And you know, openness, transparent, honesty, just keeping your word, honesty, you know, doing what you say. That's part of the problem with our other propositions and not trusting Sacramento and the shell game they spend with our money. There's a general lack of public trust, and lack of public trust is with we've got a bond and we have an expectation of what the bond's going to be used for, and then the smoke and mirrors come out or the shell game comes out, and all of a sudden, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, our money's not being spent the way you told us it was going to be spent. Strengths, the career technical education program that's been implemented. It's just fantastic. The career pathways that they're putting in at each of the schools is going to attract students. That's what it's all about. Get students back into the district, lower the dropout rate, serve our students, the academic, high-level academic students like Zach, as well as the students that need to be skilled and given work-related skills. So it's fantastic, and I'd like to endorse Zach right here and now for his board.
Thank you. Mr. Sterringer?
Yeah. I was thinking, I had plenty of time to think because I guess I'm one of the last people on this, but I would think that perhaps the graduation rate, rather than being a strength, it's not horrible. I think it's around 77%, something like that. And it certainly should be a lot better, and it can be.
And we're working on it.
And I'm not blaming the board, but as far as the strengths, you know, you're in the right place. within 100 feet of where you're sitting right now are photographs out in the gallery just behind you there of certain graduates of the Grossmont Union High School District. Let me just give you some, and this is just off the top of my head, and you'll find their pictures and bios out there. You have a surgeon who worked at Stanford University in the first heart transplant in the United States, a graduate of El Cajon Valley High School. And I can't remember his name, but he was a famous transplant surgeon. He worked with Debate and those folks. You have Greg Louganis. Greg earned 3 gold medals and 1 silver medal in the Olympics. You have Jimmy Johnson. I believe he's a Granite Hills graduate. He's won 5 Grand National Championships of NASCAR. So that puts him up there with Richard Petty and folks like that. You have Bill Walton, one of the finest basketball players ever, professional or college. There's another gentleman that's an Academy Award winner. He won the Academy Award for sound in a movie, The Matrix. You have 3 astronauts out there. You have Bill Anders, and you have Ellen Ochoa, and Major Rick Sturco, all U.S. astronauts. They're right out there. Don't leave the building tonight without taking a walk through there and seeing the high-quality people that we have graduated from our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Starcher. Ms. Stevens?
Well, let me just say the first, I'll hit the strings first, and the first 2 are what I would hear from people, especially attending sporting events, the reputation of our students and their academics, and the rigor of their curriculum. When I would talk to other parents, they were surprised because they would also hear some of the weaknesses, which is kind of the infighting and some other, the tough neighborhoods kind of thing. But they were always surprised at how dedicated the students were that they came in contact with. My own particular bias, because, and again, my experiences with Helix, dedicated teachers. I was very impressed with the level of teachers and the time that they spent. Dedicated and involved parents. There was parents at every, but again, it's going to focus on sporting events. We had a lot of parental support. We would have our own little snack bars, and everybody would just contribute, and it was not even requested. Everyone just knew to do it. We had outstanding charter schools that have a great reputation, and the sports programs. People know about Reggie Bush and some of the other professional athletes, and in particular the softball program in 2004 to 2008. We had a wonderful high-hitting softball slugger that I think yes, Alyssa Droneberg, which you all probably know, my daughter who's here, but the girls softball program and around the district has improved greatly, and it's a wonderful opportunity for young women to tie their academics to their sporting desires. So. Oh, I'm sorry, and the weaknesses. We're not a well-rounded district where, let me take 1 second. A well-rounded district where all the schools are treated equally, I don't think. I don't think all the campuses shine as brightly as a few. There's some board disharmony, and maybe there needs to be more communication, a little bit more transparency. I'm sorry.
One weekness.
I know, really, sorry.
Okay, well, we have time now for closing statements, and we're going to start with Mr. Weaver. 2 minutes.
Okay, well, the Grossmont district needs, it needs more funding, more money. We need to attract students. There's not enough students in the district, and it's been said that students are leaving the district. Well, why? Why are students leaving this district? And how are students leaving this district? And where are the students going that are leaving this district? If you really get in and look at analyze the numbers, it's not a district-wide population loss where we're bleeding students. It's more of a demographic shift. A majority of the high schools in the district, I think 6 out of them have been stable, if not have grown. And that's 6 of the 11 comprehensive. There's really only 2 or 3 high schools in the entire district that show our declines in student enrollment. So we need to sort of zero in on that and find out, what's going on there. It's not Helix that's losing them. It's not Steel Canyon that's losing them. It's not our Granite Hills, which has got 28 or I think it's 2,800 students at Granite Hills High School. It's just it's breaking at the seams with over enrollment. It was designed over 50 years ago for 1,800. Up until the recent propositions, they didn't have enough bathrooms to service the kids. But what we need to do is bring more students into this district and enact some policies that do that. And a good way to start would be to enact some board policies that look at the numbers and the population shifts and pay more attention to the boundary study that was just done. It had a student recovery report as a part of that study. It showed that they could recapture a significant number of students, and they've chosen just to ignore it. There was a student population graph. It shows in 2013 the population steadily go up, 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 and up.
Thank you. Ms. Schreiber?
Thank you. To talk a little bit more about the weaknesses that I was referring to, and thank God for our teachers and staff who are really the drivers of our district in spite of the board. Our responsibilities, like I said earlier, is to set direction, and I've learned that my job is not just about approving board policies, but also to govern by them. Unfortunately, when I try to bring what I've learned or to remind the board majority to follow policy, I'm oftentimes marginalized. It is to this district's detriment that a board majority would ignore policy for their own personal agenda. Cases in point. The debacle over redistricting and a total disregard for policy that provides for a public hearing before voting on a recommendation, a lack of proper community outreach, and a disenfranchising of many families, neighborhoods, and communities. Denying a school community the opportunity to form partnerships for the benefit of a community garden, thus the ongoing vendetta by one board member and his proteges. Disenfranchising a whole community that has long held to the promises that they too have a place in this district and will get their own high school, neighborhood school. Circumventing a board directive by pulling plans for the Alpine School from DSA without a board vote. Having never followed board policies for the superintendent's evaluation to hold them accountable, there are no goals, no objectives set, no mid-year review. In fact, no annual review of the board's mission, goals, and objectives for the district. It is this board who sets the direction. I am a conscientious board member, always prepared and ready to ask questions. And character is doing what you said you would do, and every community, it's my priority, is uniquely different and their needs should be met. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
We just need to do what's right for the students and teachers, and I think that if I was on the board, just having a new perspective, students' perspective, would be invaluable. We might be losing touch with students and teachers and with the schools and the communities, and I think that having new people on the board will help aid change, help aid appreciation of the community, of students, of just everybody involved in the education process. I also think that we need to be more fiscally responsible in these tough times. Funds are limited. We need to make sure that they go to something that's going to better the entire district and not focus on any one luxury or focusing disproportionately on any school over another school. We all better or we all just fall behind. So we have to stay together and work together. I also want to increase transparency on the board. I want everybody to know what's going on. I know there's some things that the board can't discuss with the public. I understand that, but I think plenty of it needs to be known by everybody, and we shouldn't just put it on the table and say, here, you can look at this whenever. We should make sure that the community, the schools, students, and the teachers, everybody, parents, everybody knows what's going on. Better the website, make it more user-friendly so everybody can see what we're doing, what our opinions are. They need to be able to connect with us, not just see us as elected officials, but we're people, we have opinions, and I think that needs to be appreciated the same way that we need to appreciate that there's students and parents out there who have opinions. They want things over other things to be supported or opposed, and we need to know what that is so that we can do our jobs as elected officials. We need to make sure that we care for every type of student, whether it's the type like me that everyone's been talking about, the the advanced student, or the at-risk student, or the people in the middle. We can't focus on either extreme because then you lose the people in the middle. Every student deserves equal attention and equal support.
Thank you, Mr. Woods.
Yes, I am honored to be on the Grossmont board. In the past 4 years, we have faced some of the hardest economic times in my lifetime. And Grossmont at the same time has made great strides. Our test scores are up. Student participation in career tech is up. More students are graduating than ever before. And this is significant because there's over 1,000 school districts in California, and we're one of those shining beacons that others want to partner with in the area of technology. The modernization that is taking place on our campuses is phenomenal. We are building modern science classrooms, sports facilities, swimming pools, tennis courts, football fields, because sometimes that's all it takes to keep a kid from dropping out of school. And we have some of the best campuses in California. We're trying to equalize them as much as we can, as fast as we can. But this board continually is attacked for breaking its promise. But I have proposition right here, and it says that after district-wide enrollment at the existing comprehensive high school sites, including the 2 current charter schools, equals or exceeds 23,245 at the time of the release of the request for construction, then construction can be built for a school that would accommodate up to 800 students. We have not reached that target. There's no way we can start a school without violating Proposition U. Student enrollment in Alpine has decreased by 150 just this year alone. Grossmont, we've declined by 2,000 students in just the last 4 years. That's the size of one of our comprehensive high schools. So we've gone basically from 11 schools to 10. And it's estimated that that is going to happen again. In fact, right now, we have 600 less freshmen than we do seniors. Well, your freshman class is always 70% higher, or 77% higher for us, than your graduating class. But that's not our case, because I have a chart here showing too that enrollment is not going up. It's going down, and it's going down significantly every year as far as we can project.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Ms. Stevens?
Well, I thank you all for being here, and I'd like to serve you all and your students and other members of the community. I would like to do the right thing for everyone, all students, not just the top, not just the people who are at risk or the ones who have special needs, but all students, and that's not easy to do, and I understand that. I think we do need to increase communication. Really dedicating to the website is probably a very efficient way of doing that, and having the students and teachers and parents all understand that that's there, do a concerted effort to involve them. More involvement of the community is a wonderful thing. I think we all need to get involved, because one of the things that when you're on a board and you're overseeing money, it's easy to spend other people's money unless they're sitting in front of you saying, no, you better not. That's a very sobering thing. It's kind of like your parents busting you on overspending your allowance. So I think we need to do the right thing as far as the redistricting. I think we need to allow parents and the community members' involvement in that so that they have a say. And I don't know if we could even do something more open with allowing people to go to the schools that they want, if they're willing to travel to go to the programs that they want. I think we need to keep to the integrity of the bond programs and not allow them to become sort of make work projects for some of the construction companies and management companies in the area, which I think this has kind of been. If you go to any of the meetings about the bonds, when they're being proposed, you'll go to a meeting and it's all construction companies and electrical contractors that are all there ready to support these programs. So that's a concern. And again, thank you, and I hope you take the time to vote and vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sterringer.
In my opening remarks tonight, I indicated that no one should run for this board or any other board unless they can make a difference. And I'd just like to point out that several years ago I was elected as a non-incumbent, as I am right now, to the Grossmont Hospital Board. And the Grossmont Hospital District at that time had a bank account of $100,000. Since that time, we've got to the point where we're now making $250 million worth of improvements to the hospital. I don't claim full credit for that. I was very fortunate that we had some good board members at it, and we all did. But if you look around, the building that you're in right now was built largely because of some of the things that I was able to do, including making a better deal for the people of the district. The people of the district were getting $1 a year from Sharp Hospital to rent the hospital. I instituted a lawsuit that went all the way to the California Supreme Court, and we kind of settled a little cheap, but we got $5 million and we built this building. Now, one of the things I would hope to do first if I were elected to the Grossmont High School District Board is try to solve some of the conflicts among the board members. In my opinion, the individual board members are all outstanding. But I think it's been well publicized that some of them don't get along real well. I get along well with all of them. And I think that my election to this board would be a very positive thing. So again, I'll echo the comments of Barbara and thank everybody for being here tonight. And I would reiterate, check out the Gallery of Honor. You'll be very proud of our Grossmont High School graduates who are honored out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I'd like to thank you all for attending this evening and submitting your questions. I'd like to thank the candidates for answering the questions and East County Magazine for sponsoring today.
Thank you very much for doing a great job of moderating. Thanks to all of the candidates for being here and everyone for coming. We are videotaping tonight. We will have it up on the web just as soon as Paul, who I'd also like to thank, gets that done. So if you have friends who weren't here, they were home watching the presidential debate or something, send it to them. They can watch. It'll be at www.eastcountymagazine.org, where we also have interviews with all 5 candidates, and I'll be putting links to all of those up in the story as well. And we have some refreshments out there, some water and cookies for folks. It's our way of saying thanks for coming.
But that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think that is